Hi there, welcome back to the tabletop. So recently I had a friend that is still relatively new to playing tabletop games as a whole and is looking to, be a game master for the first time. And he had asked me, what are some general tips that I have for running one-shot? Now, I run a Discord server where I'm trying out new games all the time with people that are interested in playing them. And because of this, I do a lot of one-shots mostly. Now, I have a couple of campaigns going on here and there, but I have found that the best way to try out a system is usually in a very self-contained, just one-off thing. And there's there is this misconception a lot of the time in the tabletop community that a one-shot is never really a one-shot. It usually takes 2 or 3 sittings to get through, and I don't really like that. So I have really come up with a couple of ways to ensure that a one-shot is a one-shot and that people still have a good time, all things considered. So here are 4 tips that I have found that have helped me personally through my time in practicing and trying out a bunch of different things. And I feel that, you might be able to get something from this too, especially if you're a new game master or if you've been playing for a while. And tell you what, if you think that you have better tips than I do, please let me know in the comments. I would still love to be able to hone and continue on my craft as well. And I am always trying to be a lifelong learner. So if there's something that I miss, let me know about it. So for me, number 1, the most important thing that you can know when it comes to running a one-shot is knowing where to cut content. Now, this sounds a little strange, probably, but if you are writing your own one-shot with whatever system it is that you're familiar with, there's a good chance that you are going to over-prepare, and that it could be the smallest thing that takes too long to get through. No joke, I have had so many instances where getting through a door takes almost 10 minutes. I wish I could make that up, but it is absolutely true. So if you only have a couple of hours, almost every minute is kind of precious in that regard. And you still want the players to be able to have their fun. So you need to know where to cut content. And the 2 things that I would recommend in that case is that combat and general encounters are going to be kind of like the main thing that you can eliminate. Combat is always going to be the slowest part of the vast majority of systems that I have played. And when it comes to random encounters, if that's like, traps, puzzles, stuff like that, either try to come up with a simple solution to avoid them, or just be willing to not have it be there in the first place. It is okay to withhold content for now, and then if you decide to run it again later and you want to make sure that it's there, you can include it. So the second tip that I have is going to kind of go along with the first. So where to cut content, and something that I would really recommend is that you try to limit combat encounters as a whole. Now, if you have a system that is very good for getting through combat encounters quickly, say Monster of the Week, for example, then you can include, more of them, especially if it's something that you can get done in a matter of minutes, and then move on with the rest of the adventure. However, if you are playing something like Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, it's going to take a while. I've had instances recently where I've been running Pathfinder and fighting one enemy still takes 30 to 45 minutes, just because everybody has to know what they are doing and is going to slow you down a little bit. Everybody has their turns to take, everybody wants to make an optimized thing, and that eats into the amount of time that you have. So the way that I tend to prepare my encounters is that, you want to whittle away some resources, make the players feel at least a little bit challenged before they get into the final encounter. So I'll have, maybe 2, 3 small ones that can be done in a matter of minutes. These are usually relatively weaker enemies, or, if I want to have some environmental hazards in there as well, that can be a way to eat through some resources, and then have one big cinematic climactic finish at the very end. And I have found that this seems to be like the more kind of satisfying way, and then you have time for a little bit of an epilogue with your players to kind of like set them up for their next adventure, which then you can start working on your next one shot if you want to continue with the same characters that you already have. Tip number 3 is, again, going to be tying into that big climactic encounter that we just talked about, and I like to work backwards. I like to try to find a main adversary, foe, or enemy that I want to use, and then I'm going to work backwards from there, and that's usually by fulfilling a number of questions. Let's say, for example, that you want to use a dragon as your enemy. So then you have a couple of questions on, where is this dragon going to be? Is it going to be in some old abandoned tomb sleeping? Is it going to be harassing a village and it has a lair somewhere nearby? Is it a mobile threat, and how are the players going to get to it? And then try to figure out some motivations and some ways to make it more fun and to keep those encounters going, keep it kind of fresh throughout the remainder of the adventure. So for example, let's say that this dragon is in a lair that is underneath the ground. Okay, so why is it there? First of all, all, how is it defending itself if it's like resting? Why is it there in the first place? What kind of effect could be going on around it? What are clues that you can give the players to let them know that, hey, there is something that is here? And I have found that by answering those questions while I am writing my one-shots, that usually I can, have a lot more fun with it, and it just allows me to really focus on the story that I'm trying to tell for that one moment. And it also helps set up encounters for your players. The last tip that I have is don't be afraid to guide them. Look, I know that railroading has a really bad rap in the tabletop community as a whole. However, if you are trying to do a one-shot and you only have 3 to 4 hours to tell that story, you need to try to keep the players on track, and sometimes that can be a little difficult. I always am trying to, I don't constantly remind the players that, hey, like, we have an objective, let's try to keep on that path. I don't necessarily keep them on the straight and narrow, but just be willing to move some things around so the story is still going. And don't be afraid to have people that are there to, kind of remind them that, like, hey, this is the thing that needs doing. That way you're not having to spread out this one shot over the course of a couple of sessions. If that is what you want to do, by all means, that is fantastic. I would encourage you to go for it. But strictly in the sense of keeping it as a one-shot, don't be afraid to remind players, like, hey, this is the direction that you have to go. I've had a number of times where, as a player, I feel like I'm in a situation and I don't know what we're supposed to be doing or where we're supposed to be going. So don't be afraid to have a guiding NPC, for example, or have somebody that they have to talk to that gives them, like, a very direct objective. Go and, clear this tomb, take out this enemy, like, retrieve this thing, right? That way they have a very clear defined goal, and then you are able to get things moving rather rapidly. And that can also come in the case of a strong hook, and then you have a starting NPC that wants to talk to them at the very start of the adventure to give them a little bit more information. So as a whole, I have found that one-shots are a lot of fun. It is a good way to try out a wide variety of systems, especially if you pick up a quick start that usually has an adventure in it that can be done in only a couple of hours. And the best part is that sometimes starting as a one-shot can actually lead into an ever-growing campaign, and sometimes that is really what you want. But I hope that these tips have been helpful. I hope that you've been able to glean something from it. And, if you're a new game master, what are some other tips that you would like that I might be able to fill you in on? I've been in this hobby for about 10 years now, and I don't do that to, like, flex. I just know that there's a lot that I learned, and there's still a lot that I would love to learn. So please let me know about it. And hey, if you like that video, give it that thumbs up. If you want to see a little bit more about what I do here on the channel, by all means, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. But until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.